Okay, we're here tonight with Dylan McKenna, who just recently won his first nationally qualifying physique contest. And we're going to do a little interview where we ask a series of questions to give kind of an in-depth snapshot of what he went through for his contest prep. Hi, Dylan.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good. Okay, so let me start with some basic questions, okay? So basically, what motivated you to do a show to begin with?
What motivated me to do a show? So honestly, the initial motivation for me to do the show. Should I look here at the camera?
Oh, either way is fine.
Either way, all right. So basically, I would say the main thing that motivated me to want to do a show is the fact that growing up, I always played sports. I was extremely competitive. So like I just had that competitive edge in me, and after I stopped playing sports in high school, I kind of, I started lifting weights and I really loved it, but I wasn't really competing, with anyone, with anything. I was just doing it as a passion, doing it for fun. And so then I just got to the point where I decided, you know what, I want to be able to compete in something again and just have that, that driving force in a sense while I'm in the gym. So that's kind of what motivated me to want to do the show, was just to be able to compete again and just enjoy that competition, just me versus somebody else. And also I love, bodybuilding because it's a sport where it's only you know what I mean, that puts the work in or doesn't put the work in. So there's no, someone didn't block or somebody didn't do this. So, that's another reason why I love. Yeah, I felt like, yeah, exactly. So that's pretty much, what prompted me to want to do it. And also just another challenge, to be honest. I mean, I just felt like my training, not that it was getting boring or anything. I still loved to train, but I just felt like I just needed a new goal in the gym. Like I did powerlifting for a while. I've done, bodybuilding specific. I've done all these different things, but I just wanted like a new thing to really focus on and just bring that package on like that day of the show, see what I could do. So.
Okay, well, getting into the nuts and bolts of what you did, how much did you weigh before you started the prep?
I weighed 195 pounds before I started the prep, yeah.
What did you say you'd weigh like a week out?
About a week out, I was the lowest I got on peak week was like 172.5 pounds. I would say on show day, I was probably like, when I was carved up, I was 175.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did your training look like before your prep?
My training looked like before my prep. So I would bench twice a week, squat twice a week, and deadlift twice a week, do legs, push, pull. So essentially, you're going to squat on a leg day, deadlift on your pull day, and then bench on your push day. So that's what I would do and so I would always start out with the heavy compounds. When I was doing the show, pretty quickly into the prep, the goal was basically just to retain muscle mass and really just keep the muscles full all the time. So essentially what I was doing was, instead of, doing all these squats and deadlifts, I cut down on the squats and deadlifts, and I focused just more on time under tension, more hypertrophy style lifting. I still squatted and deadlift, but I just wasn't going for maximal weight. I was going for tempo and really feeling it in the muscle.
Right.
In a sense, training more quote unquote bodybuilding style.
This is before the prep.
That's how it transitioned. So before the prep, it was just legs, push, pull. Okay. It was deadlift, squats, bench twice a week, everything. And then I transitioned on prep
to more of that bodybuilding.
Yeah, to more bodybuilding type, exactly.
Okay. Did you do cardio before the prep?
I did zero. No, before I started this prep, I legitimately had done no hours on that treadmill all winter.
Now, if you divided prep up into, like, say, 3 phases, you have like the first 5 weeks, the second 5 weeks, and the last month.
Yeah.
Did your training change significantly during those different phases?
Of the prep?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say like the first wing of the prep, I was still training very heavy, doing heavy squats and heavy deadlifts, right? Mm-hmm. That was like the first few weeks, the first 2-3 weeks. And then quickly I kind of started doing less squats because I noticed that it would just, in a sense, it would allow me to not train as hard, the next day for like an upper body day. And I was doing a men's physique show. So if I'm going and killing squats, I decided when I'm on these low calories, I'm just going to stop doing squats. I'll do leg press. I'll do all these other things, maintain that muscle in the legs, but I'm going to take it a little bit easier on legs. And then I'm not going to deadlift anymore. I cut deadlifts out because I just didn't want to get injured, honestly.
Right.
Like the deadlift is a very high risk movement. You're really at risk to get injured when you're doing the movement. It's very easy to get injured even if you're doing it the right way. So I decided, you know what, I already have built what I've built and I'm in such a deficit. I'm just going to stop these deadlifts, work on bringing out the detail in the back and retaining all the muscle I had built through doing all those deadlifts and heavy compounds throughout, the first 5 years, 6 years I trained.
Kind of a two-pronged question. Did you did a lot of cardio during the prep? And if so,
Yes.
how did that change as the prep went on?
So I started out, my coach had me start out on 20 minutes every single day. And then
what?
20 minutes steady state. So it's just steady state cardio.
Was it on the treadmill or
So
stairs?
it would be 20 minutes steady state cardio, keeping my heart rate around 120 beats per minute, which is roughly like, it's pretty much like a 3.5 in the treadmill, like on like a 5-10 incline, or like a Stairmaster on the 6, something along those lines. So it's very low intensity. And then what would happen is we would slowly bump up the how much cardio I was doing. So it would go from like 20, 25, then I think it went to 35, 45, 50, and then an hour. So at the most I was doing was an hour, and it just slowly went up. And then, towards the end, we actually increased the intensity as well. So it'd be like an hour on a higher intensity than I would have done the 20 minutes when I first started. Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look at your food. Before prep started, what were you eating?
Before prep started, I was honestly eating like a slob all the time. And like a lot like how I would eat. And it's like, it's a situation where I just got lazy in a sense because I had this mentality where I was like, you know what, you got to eat big to get big, like, etc. And for some of you guys out there, right, for some people, they literally need to eat as much as they can stomach or they won't gain weight, right? And it's easy to tell yourself, like, I'm just eating to get big, but in reality, for some people that, are, like for me, right, I'm done growing, et cetera, I probably have a normal metabolism, or maybe a little fast than average, but at the end of the day, I'm a big guy with a big appetite. Like if I'm just eating as much food as I can, I'm going to get fat. So essentially, I told myself, oh, you know what? Like I'm just eating to get big. Like, you know what I mean? And I would do that in high school too. And I, it's just not the same anymore. I'm not still growing. I mean, in high school I could get away with eating everything I could stomach, and I really wouldn't put on much fat. But now that I'm done growing, my body's like pretty much matured into itself. I simply cannot just eat as much food as I want in whatever quantity, whatever type, or I will just simply get fat. And that's kind of what I did last winter. That's how I ate. I just ate a lot of food. I wasn't worried about the quality. Most of the time, probably not hitting my protein. Up until about 2 or 3 months before I started my prep, then I started kind of hunkering it down and getting a little bit more serious about making sure that my diet was on point. And I think personally that having an on-point diet, aka quality foods, being in a slight surplus is much more beneficial than just simply getting fat just to get a little bit stronger. Yeah.
Do you have an idea of how many calories you might have been eating before the prep on the average?
I mean, honestly, if I would say 4,000 to 5,000 a day, which consistently is a lot. I mean, for like a guy my size, I was like 205. That's a lot of food. You know what I mean? Like, a pretty big guy could hold weight. Like, you could probably hold weight at 240, 250 with a lot of muscle at 5,000. You know what I mean? It's a lot. I was in way too big of a surplus.
Okay, let's talk about like the first 4 weeks of prep. How'd your diet change then?
So essentially, like, with my coach, how we did it was he would send me a meal plan, right? So I was not, like, he would track my calories for me. He would just, this is what you eat, and I eat it. So essentially, the diet went from pretty shitty to right into very, very quality foods. Every single meal was, rice, chicken, steak, greens. I had no fruit. I had like the only type of nut that I had the entire time was cashews. I would just put some Walden Farms on there on the cashews. It was very, very bland. As soon as I started prep, it was higher quantities of the bland food. Like I had salmon, different meats. But then as the prep, evolved, then it was the same exact foods I started with, but it just slowly tapered down to less and less and less and less.
I'm sorry, how much protein did you say you were getting during the first weeks?
About body weight.
About body weight?
Body weight, yeah. That's what I always strive for even now, whether I'm in a surplus or not. You're going to be, it's a safe bet to get around body weight. If you're overweight, then you could do less than body weight, maybe 0.8 grams per pound of protein per body weight. But yeah, for me personally, I'll try to get a gram just to be safe at all times.
And you said the calories were around what range?
When I started the prep?
Yeah, the first 4 weeks,
The first 4 weeks of prep, the calories are probably like 2,500.
Okay.
Yeah, so it wasn't too bad.
Now, when you started going into, say, week 5 through 8, how did it change there? Or did
I would
it change?
say, let's just say like the first 2-3 weeks are 25. And so how I would go about it, we would do high carb day. So we would have low carb, basically moderate, and then high carb days. And so we would always flip-flop them around. So I would say weekly, I mean, weeks 5 through 8, it switched from, let's just say weekly, I was averaging 2,500 calories a day to weekly averaging probably 2,100 calories, 2,000 to 2,100.
Okay, on your low carb, first of all, like how many low carb days would there have been per week, and about how low would they have been?
So the thing is, we didn't actually go low carb. Like we wouldn't use the. So it was essentially I was mistaken. It was no carb, low carb,
right,
and then a higher carb.
Okay,
which is kind of moderate.
Right.
So pretty much when I started, it was all high carb days. Pretty much just all high carb days or the moderate carbs. Then we would drop down, and then we would mix. We would
right,
mix the moderate carb days with the lower carb days, and we would do that, and then slowly it would get down to the point where it'd be moderate carbs with no carb, moderate carb, you know what I mean?
Right.
No carb. So that's kind of how it went. And then towards the end, it'd be like maybe 4 days or so would be the most I would go with no carbs, just
right,
because you don't want to damage the metabolism in a
right,
sense. If you're going completely no carbs, then it's hard to, your body's just going to have an issue receiving the carbs, obviously. So you don't want that to happen when you're obviously like when you're about to step on stage. So
right,
you have to keep the carbs a little bit in there, and so that's what we did. But
did you find by like say day 4 of no carbs, your training intensity started to suffer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say like when you're on no carbs for one full day, like if you're already very lean, if you're sub 10% body fat, and you're on no carbs for one day, like to be honest, and you're in a caloric deficit, and you're in that position, your body fat's very low, and you go no carb for one day. After that day, you're gonna start seeing a suffering in performance. In my opinion, that's what I experienced. You could definitely push through it, but it just gets to a point where, yeah, I mean, it starts to really suck. I mean, what you can do though, some people do this, is they go keto, they just completely cut the carbs out. If your fats are really high, you can kind of manage it. But if you're just keeping your carbs in your diet, but you're only going a few days at a time with no carbs,
right,
it makes it much worse because your
right,
body is used to having the carbs. But then you don't get it for 3-4 days, and so it makes you really suffer much worse than almost if you had no carbs for like months on end.
Okay, let's talk about peak week. If you had to describe first your training on peak week, what was that like?
Training on peak week, it was kind of like, so it's a situation where by the time you're legitimately 7 days out, you're not pushing hard in the gym anymore, because it's like a situation where you're so dry. I mean, my muscles kind of almost like hurt when I was in the gym. Like when I would get a crazy pump and my muscles would literally ache because they were just so fucking dried out. And so it's a situation where you're really just going in there to kind of get blood flow through there. You're not training to failure. You're not going heavy. You're just going in there doing 3-4 sets of 8 to 12 reps, leaving like 2 to 3 reps in the tank. That's what I was doing. And yeah, just kind of getting some weight moving. I didn't do any legs on peak week. I would just I did like arms. I would separate each body part on peak week. You know what I mean? Just very low intensity. Go in there, get some blood in the muscle, and get out really, and then get your cardio done. That's honestly.
Okay, if you remember, kind of give us an idea of how many calories you're getting during peak week and how it might have varied a little bit.
How many calories during peak week? So it was, we basically, it was more so like I was pretty ready about a week out,
right,
so we weren't suffering me down. Like it wasn't like I was on no carbs. So by like 6-7 days out or so, I was at the point where we were keeping me on like a moderate carb.
Right.
So I was on like maybe 100 carbs a day, something like along those lines.
Right.
I mean, yeah, something around there. Actually, that might have started about 5 days out.
Okay.
5 days out, like day 5, day 4. Day 6, 7 out, it was actually, I had 2 of the worst days, 2 of the worst suffering days. It was the one day I actually had a situation where I think something happened with my blood sugar. I don't remember. I was telling you. So essentially, what happened was I was on no carb, and I was just so fucking lean, like single-digit body fat, and I just started getting confused, dizzy, lightheaded. Like I literally couldn't.
In the morning, right?
Yeah, could not breathe, and it was just very bad. And essentially, my body went hyperglycemic.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So my body needed carbs, so we basically gave me a little bit of carbs, and I was supposed to go no carb.
Right.
And then once we added those carbs in, we just said, you know what, we're going to keep moderate for the rest, and we'll just push cardio, because my body was at the point where it just was not tolerating having 0 carbs well.
It wasn't liking you very much.
Yeah, no. Because when you keep carbs in, like 99% of a prep,
Mm-hmm.
and then go those low carb days, you know, if you've been there, are suffering days. And so when you're that close, when you're already pretty much ready to go and your body's so, you know, depleted, it does not like you.
How bad did your body feel like the day before the show?
I mean, the day before the show, it was fine, actually. The day before the show was fine. The reason why I felt fine the day before the show is because, I mean, essentially 3 days out, we started giving more carbs.
Right.
So I went to, like, a little bit higher carbs, a little bit higher. So the day before, I mean, I had pretty much already had a normal, like, 2,500, 2,600 calories.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I felt okay, honestly.
Now, I know that Cornelius stayed here and helped you film the entire prep, right?
He's still alive, I think.
Would it be fair to say that Cornelius is lucky to have survived your prep with his life?
Would it be
and whole?
Yes, it is. Honestly, it is a blessing that Cornelius is still with us. Now, I don't know how he took it. Like, to be honest, because this is the thing, right? I've never dieted to that level before in my entire life, and I can be a semi-bossy person in general. Like, it is what it is. I have to, you know, it's something that I always have to make sure I'm not being. But I think that it definitely made me a little bit over the edge. I think Cornelius definitely had to deal with a lot, and it is definitely a blessing he's still here with us, and I'm not somewhere in a prison.
That's really funny. Okay, after the show, how many days of eating did it require for you not to kill Cornelius anymore, or not feel like you wanted to kill Cornelius anymore?
Well, the day before the show, actually, I walked into my living room, and I did actually have the thought of him not being around anymore, being shipped away to another country, we'll say, because my entire apartment was smoked out because he was cooking food. So that was pretty much, I was at the peak of that. And then once I had food in me, I went away on vacation, started missing corn a little bit, got back, and ever since it's been fun. So pretty much, right when I got back from vacation, which was like a week after my show.
No, realistically, I know we're joking about killing Cornelius, but in reality, though, when did you start really noticing that your mood started getting kind of irritable and?
The mood started getting honestly irritable probably like 4 weeks out, 5 weeks out, but it wasn't horrible. I mean, 4 to 5 weeks out, it would start declining for sure, and pretty much at that point, it just slowly tapered down to. I mean, I didn't do anything extremely drastic. Well, you could make arguments that I did in certain. But
would you say that then your during your prep, your emotional state was such that it might have affected your personal relationships?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Even outside
I
of
can
Cornelius,
say, I mean, me and James definitely have had extensive conversation about this. But basically, I mean, I think that going through the prep for the first time, right? I was not honestly mentally prepared for exactly what I was getting myself into. I love the whole process of it, but I just wasn't mentally prepared. So next time, I feel I'll be much more just mentally stable with it in a sense. But I mean, it was definitely like a lot. Yeah.
Would it be fair to say that
it was a lot, and so yes. I mean, I would say relationships in a way definitely suffered. I mean, because you're just so irritable. I honestly feel like sometimes, I would feel bad for myself. I'm so fucking hungry, etc. You know what I mean? Like, just being a diva.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's like, I'm just fucking lucky that I get to suffer like that. And I get to, like, I'm not really suffering. I'm eating fucking 6 meals a day.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, oh my God. And it's like, yes, I was shredded,
you
but
are
I was
starving in a sense.
I wasn't fucking 3% body fat.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yes, I was starving. I was hungry.
Right.
But, like, good for me. I go home to my air-conditioned fucking bed. You know what I mean? Like, I was being a little bit of a diva.
But you're basically still saying, though, that
Yes.
you definitely might have handled your relationships differently.
Yes, I would have handled
if
certain relationships with females differently. More so the female aspect of it.
That's fair.
But, I mean, I definitely could have behaved better. We'll put it that way.
Okay. Getting to the show itself, I know you did a video on this, which everybody should be watching, and I'm sure most of you have. But if you haven't, go do it now.
What, the show day video?
Yeah, the show day video.
No, after you watch this video.
After you watch this video, do the show day video. But anyway, tell us kind of what you were thinking. I mean, what was in your head, like, when you started the day?
What, for show day?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So honestly, this is show day and just literally show day. That is when I realized, like, this is something that I want to pursue for a very long time and just see where I can take this, like, my body with this sport. Because when I just woke up on show day, like, I had this feeling of such accomplishment in a sense that I had gotten through everything and I came with a good package that I felt like I could win with. And so, I don't know, I just felt extremely accomplished and excited to be able to just get up there and compete. Like, I honestly, like, yes, I wanted to win, but it was to the point where I was just so proud of myself that I got to that point. And yes, I could have been better and I will be better in the future, but it's like, it was my best shape, my best condition that I've ever been in my life, and seeing myself like that, it was just a testament to, like, the dedication I put in. And so, yeah, just really a feeling of accomplishment. And this is something I love. I mean, I've loved the gym for 5-6 years. I mean, it's been like, it's honestly a lifelong passion of mine, 100%. And so, just, yeah, I mean, being able to compete and see my body at that level was something I really, really, really enjoyed.
When you first walked out for the pre-judging, what was going through your head?
When I first walked out for pre-judging, I think the first time I walked down stage, I felt like shocked almost. Like, I almost, like, forgot what I needed to do for my poses. I'm like, oh, like, it just, and it was just literally it was in a middle school venue.
Right.
And it was, like, not really, like, the craziest thing, but I'm just, like, it felt insane, you know what I mean? I was like, you're under the lights, I don't know. So I was very, very, very nervous when I walked out for pre-judging. And
when they moved you to the center, what were you thinking?
I didn't know if I was in the center.
Okay.
That's the thing. I was like, so, like, honestly, when I walked out, they immediately moved me somewhere, like, literally immediately. And I didn't know, I thought I was in the center. I was like, I thought I might be. And then, like, we start walking off, and everyone was like, oh, yeah, like good, like, basically saying, like, good job.
Right.
Like, because I was center stage when we walked off, which is always a good sign, thinking, you know, going into the night show that you're going to win the show. So, or like at least win your class.
How confident were you that you were going to win when you went into the night show?
I was 100% confident.
Really?
I was. Actually,
you cocky bastard.
I was a cocky bastard. No, you know what? That's not true. I was honestly 90% confident. Because there was one other guy that I just, like, I felt that, like, I should win.
Right.
But I just was like, I don't really know what's going to happen. There was one other guy. But other than that, I mean, I felt like 90% confident that I was going to win. And
did you also feel like you were going to win the whole show?
Yes. No, that's what I mean. Like, I knew that I had won my class, 100%. Right. I knew that was the case. But I was like, there's one other guy, and people were, like, kind of hyping this guy up.
Right.
And I was like, I got him. But I don't know. There was that little creep of doubt. And I ended up getting him, so.
Okay.
We took him out.
You can't really beat that. Well, let's start getting into after the show. Okay. I saw the video, and did you really eat all that food?
Yeah, after the show, I mean, yeah. It was, so, honestly, I haven't really talked about this on my channel. I'll probably make a separate video, honestly, on my channel going more in depth about this. But basically, so I honestly just was not really educated on what happens to the body after you're done a show. Like, I didn't really know. Like, I know you hear you're supposed to reverse diet, etc. Right. But I just didn't really. I didn't know how big of a deal it truly was. Okay, right. So what happened was.
Why don't you explain to them what reverse dieting actually is?
Yeah. So basically, with reverse dieting, it's essentially just slowly increasing your calories over time, so that you can get your body back to a healthy level of body fat and a healthy normal amount of food. So that's kind of what reverse dieting is. Now, what I did was I booked an all-inclusive resort vacation for a week after I did my show. I ate probably 7,000 calories a day for like 6 days in a row. And my body was used to very low sodium, very low carb, and massive amounts of water just flushing through my system all the time. I basically just overloaded my body with sodium and carbs, and when you do that and your body's in that state for 3 months of being deprived of it, then your body holds on to all the sodium and actually releases a chemical in your body, which I forget what it's called, but it releases some sort of chemical that makes you hold on to all that salt so it doesn't flush through with the water.
Right.
So literally you're having all these carbs, which makes you hold water, you're having all this salt, and so way more salt than you were having before, and more of that salt is staying in your body.
Right.
And just overall you're in a monster caloric surplus, and essentially I just completely spilled over. I gained a shit ton of water weight, probably 20 pounds of water. I felt really unhealthy. I would literally poke into my shin and there would literally be like just water in my ankle. It was not fun. So I learned my lesson. I've lost all that water. Now I feel healthy, I feel good again, but I definitely learned my lesson. Next show, reverse diet.
Okay. Did you panic a little bit when you saw the water weight?
Oh, yeah, I absolutely panicked. I mean, I just didn't know what was going on at all. So I was in Jamaica. I literally freaked out. I like went down to the nursing station. The nurse kind of like taking my blood pressure, like it's a little high, probably because I'm having a panic attack. That was probably the main reason. And she's like, oh no, because I mean, having water retention in your legs like that, it can be a symptom of like a lot of really, really negative health issues, heart conditions, kidney conditions, which I really didn't think that I had, honestly, but I get a little paranoid at times, a little bit of a hypochondriac, so I was freaking out. I go down there, and then the nurse is like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, your legs, that's pretty alarming. And I was like, she's like, I'm gonna have to call the doctor. So I'm like, oh, like, I just was freaking out. And then the doctor kind of came, we kind of chalked it down to what I just said, adding in all that salt, all that food, and she said she checked out my heartbeat, listened to my lungs, you know, whatever, checked some stuff out. I was like, you're okay, you can fly when you to go home, everything's gonna be fine, just don't eat as much food.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. That is funny. So if you weighed 172 the day of the show, what would you say you weighed a week afterwards?
I mean, in the morning, yeah, probably 200.
So you could put on like 25 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, maybe like in the morning, maybe 195 to 200. So I'd put 25 pounds on.
And what do you weigh now?
I weigh like 194 in the morning right now.
And you lost most of that water weight. Like
so yeah, I lost like 8-9 pounds of just of strict water for real. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to add for like just some?
I would honestly, the only thing I would say is like we did talk obviously because this is a lot about competing and stuff like that and like the show. So I would just say, if you guys are interested in doing a show, make sure that you get a good coach that is going to make sure that, you know, you're doing things right while you're doing the prep and that you're doing everything in a healthy way. And yeah, just make sure that if you guys do end up doing it, you don't make the mistake that I made and don't reverse diet because it can really mess your body up. That's really the only thing I would say.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you very much, Dylan, for coming by.
Absolutely.
I appreciate
I'll probably be back tomorrow.
All right, guys. Take care.
All right, cool.